part of your ability to actually manifest and create is probably, part of it is just the belief divided by doubt, or belief maybe minus doubt. Because you can believe a little bit, but every time you allow doubts to come in, then you're weakening your creative ability. I think we're here to create. We are creators. We were created by a creator. We have been given this ability to create. But when we doubt, we literally suck the power out of our ability to create. And people let doubt come into their minds so easily, right? It's easy
for sure.
Because everyone else has it. You kind of say, well, they don't really believe they can do this, or this can be done, or no one believes in me. You got to believe in yourself when no one else does.
Welcome to the MINDTRX podcast with breakthrough ideas to live your best life possible and how to make it happen. I'm Paul Scheele, and today we'll be joined by Tom McCarthy. Tom McCarthy is father of two, husband of 30 years, author of The Breakthrough Code and Win the Presentation Game. He's CEO or board member of 8 companies, an early stage investor in over 40 companies, and a worldwide philanthropist. After a successful career with a Wall Street firm, Tom found his true passion in the field of helping people in business, athletics, and life break through their limitations and step into their fullest potential. Hey, Tom, good to be with you. Welcome here.
It's always great to be with you, Paul. I'm really excited to be here and chat with you.
Thanks. Well, I loved your book. You wrote a very interesting book that teaches some essential principles to folks. And one of the things I loved about it is that you did it in the way of a narrative where you're listening to the main character interact with coaches, mentors that really help to up-level this young man's life into more success and a greater sense of joy in life. Could you tell me what the inspiration for your book was?
I think the inspiration was a little bit of my life. It's not a biography, but there's parts of me in it. And I grew up in a family where my dad was an Army officer, was a West Point graduate, was sent to Vietnam early in the war and didn't make it back. And I still remember looking out the window at 3 years old, my bedroom, and my mom was getting my younger brothers dressed. I had a 2-year-old brother and a 6-month-old brother, and a taxi cab pulling up, Army officer getting out. I thought it was my dad coming home, right? Because my mom was telling us, Dad's going to be home in a month. He'd been there like 11 months, I think. But it was the Army officer coming to tell my mom that my dad had been killed in Vietnam the day before. And when something like that happens, I mean, the level of grief and sadness and fear that generates, it really shakes you up. And my life as a little 3-year-old, and then even into probably my teens and maybe even early 20s, there was a tremendous amount of fear, and life was not black and white anymore. I mean, that shook us up. I can still remember my mom kind of locking us or closing the door, making us stay in the bedroom, going down because she knew what was going on, and hearing the scream, and then all of a sudden people are coming into our home, and it was just tons of fear. And so I didn't know. I thought that, back then my belief system was like, hey, maybe I just, drew the wrong stick, right? I got dealt a bad card. There's no hope for me. And things worked out pretty well for me, but I had in my younger years, but I had a tremendous amount of fear, and I didn't understand that you can shift reality. You can use adversity to really prosper and grow and become amazing. And also, you can shift reality. If things aren't going well, you can shift that. I know a lot of your work's about that too. You've inspired me. So that was really the inspiration for the book. I want people, no matter where they are, if things are going really, really well, to understand that it can go even better. You can break through limits. There really are no limits, I don't believe. And if someone's struggling, I want them to know that They don't have to. And that struggle is probably a gift if they use it really well, because it'll give them the opportunity to create a breakthrough and start to see that anywhere I look at my life where I'm stuck, where there's a limit, if I apply certain principles, I can create a breakthrough in that area.
Beautiful. Well, one of the things that I noticed, by the way, I appreciate hearing a little bit of your own backstory, because I imagine that there was some biopic nature to the storyline that you told. So now it's even more clear for me. So thank you for that. And I was imagining this powerful notion of transformation that occurs when a person really embraces the idea that life isn't something that happens to them. It's something that happens for them.
Yeah.
And that transformational shift is a powerful one. How do you think you came to recognize that distinction for yourself?
Yeah, so we all have a story in our head about who we are, what life is, what adversities, what they mean. And, for a long time in growing up, I was like, man, I was afraid of the next adversity, like the next thing, what could happen to someone else in my life? What could happen to me? And so I did not look at adversity and challenge as something that was happening for me. It was happening to me, and I didn't like it. And I think it was in my 20s, I began to learn that you can use these things. And the old story that you've had for so many years, you don't have to keep carrying that story along with you. I mean, I tell people the most important story you'll ever hear is the one you tell yourself, right? Because it determines how you look at the world. It determines what you see. And so when I shifted that, and it's not easy. I mean, look, somebody going through something right now, I go, hey, this is really happening for you. They're going to say, screw you, right? What do you mean it's happening for me? This sucks. There's some, really challenging things that can happen. But the quicker you realize it, and the more that you adopt a mindset of, even when it's happening, which is what I have now, and I try and teach my kids and everyone that I'm sharing this with, if you can understand in the moment, as crappy as it is, and there's some really tough stuff that's going to happen to people in their lives, but when you understand in that moment that I can use this, right? I can get better from this. I can become something more from this. The quicker you're able to do that, the less pain and suffering there is. And so now when, things happen that I don't necessarily want to have happen from my conscious mind, I just try and remember that. And it really is very, very empowering when you do that.
That's cool. I had a teacher that said pain, or the suffering that we're experiencing, pain is the effort involved in clinging to a negative idea. Or in the context of your book, it's the stories that people are repeating to themselves. And we'll talk a bit more about that as we go on. One of the things that I wanted to hear from you is this idea of introducing some of these principles to someone who really is in the throes of being a subject to the powerful nature of whatever's rolling over them at the time. We have tsunamis of change that happen, be it economic or medical or whatever it might be happening to the planet, climate change, you name it. A lot of the traumas that we're experiencing, we inherit. We didn't necessarily create it. Some of it we create by our own hand.
Yeah.
But for sure, we inherit it. So you are introducing some pretty powerful ideas. I love the way that your character gets the first download of the first big idea, and his mentor or coach, Bob, watches him go on and thinks to himself, yeah, he's got a lot more coming. There's going to be.
Which is real life, right? It's not like bam, and all of a sudden,
one and done. I'm finished. I got the light.
What we all want, but it doesn't happen typically that way.
Right. And you do a good job of really talking to that idea of hoping for instant gratification once you get some novel idea.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, how did you come to understand a principle that both you and I teach? It's the idea of the power of your subconscious mind. And you then frame it in two ways. You talk about the superconscious mind, and you also talk about universal life force. So kind of a three-part question. How did you get introduced to it? And how do you define or describe these two things, the superconscious and the universal life force?
Yeah, geez, I don't know how I got introduced to it because I've just read so many books and been studying this. I'm an old guy, right? So for so many years, and I think I've been refining it. I mean, I got introduced to the power of the subconscious mind. I call it the superconscious mind, but the subconscious mind, back probably in my teens. And that's when I started shifting my story, because I realized that a lot of what was showing up was just, from the story that I had driven down into my subconscious mind, right? Whatever's showing up in your life is being created by you for the most part. But it's not being created by you consciously. No, I didn't create that. No, you didn't do it consciously. But your programming did. You said we inherit some of our programming. We inherit a lot from our parents, right? And
from our 3-year-old, that 3-year-old self that made a faulty conclusion way back, right?
Yeah. Or the 3-year-old that didn't have a developed conscious mind and just let in a belief system from parents or outside world without discerning, hey, I don't want to believe that. Right? Exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, I've always believed in it, and now I use it even more, but I can remember so many times where I would give myself like a huge challenge, like something that, wow, man, this probably couldn't happen. But I'm saying, I'm going to start programming my superconscious mind to achieve it. There's some things in back of me. I don't know if people will be able to see this, but there's a trophy back there. I won a poker tournament in 2005. Was asked to play in this poker tournament. There's going to be some World Series of poker champion players in it. I'd played poker exactly one time in my life, and it was back in like 1983 when I was in college, right? So I didn't know how to play, right? I didn't know how to play, but my friends invited me to come, and they said it's for a good cause, some money will go to charity. And so I said, God dang it, I'll go. But my first thought was, this is going to suck, right? I'm going to go in there. I won't know. I'm playing against these experts, and I'm going to last, 20 minutes or something, if that. And then I said, hey, wait a minute. No, let's do different programming. And so all I did, I only had like a week to do this. I didn't study any hands. I didn't watch any poker on TV. I did have one of my buddies give me about 10 minutes of showing me the hands that I wanted to get, right? And the rules and things like that. That was it. So, but what I did do was, whenever I thought of that tournament, I only had 2 thoughts in my mind, and I really felt them. One of the habits we talk about in the book is you got to see it, feel it, believe it in order for the superconscious to embrace it. Like if you're just thinking about it, that's not going to do much for the superconscious. Or even if you just tell it, but you don't tell it with conviction, with belief, with a feeling of certainty, seeing it, feeling it, that's how the superconscious really starts to say, oh, that's what you want. And so I had 2 thoughts. I told myself, and it wasn't like I was doing it all the time, but whenever I thought of the tournament, I just said, oh yeah, I made great decisions and I found a way to win. And for a week, I just, oh yeah, man, I made great decisions. I found a way to win that thing. I had so much fun. That's all I put in my head about it. And so my superconscious was like, it was into it. It got it. And so I remember I was getting ready to go, and I told my wife, hey, honey, I'm going to this tournament. I said, don't wait up. I'm going to win this thing. And she knew I'd only played once before. She'd never seen me play poker. Right? I played once. But I don't know if I didn't even tell her I played in college, right? But she knew I don't play. And she said, what time does it start? I said, about 6:30. She goes, I'll see you at 7. And I said, all right, you'll see. Like, I didn't.
Thanks for your support, honey.
Exactly. Well, she was joking around, right? It's all good fun. And so anyways, I get there, and I was feeling so confident, not from experience, just because I'd programmed it. I'm at, there's several tables, 8 people at a table, or 6 or something like that. I can't remember. But I'm just so confident. And people around me are, I think, making mistakes because I look so daggone confident. and I win my table, and then eventually I get to the championship table, and then finally it's me and one other guy, and he's like a really good player. And now my buddies are telling him, they're teasing him, hey, you're losing to a guy that doesn't even really know how to play, and he's getting pissed off. And so I had so many more chips than him, and he gets pissed off. He goes, I think he had probably a pretty good hand, so he goes all in. So I go all in. That was the only time I had like a little bit of like, oh, is this really going to work? Right. And I end up winning the thing. My buddies are picking me up. They put this bracelet on me. I get this trophy. I get back at like 2 a.m. I couldn't resist. I go in the bedroom. I flick the light on, hold my trophy. My wife wakes up all groggy. I said, guess who you're sleeping with tonight? The champ is here. But I do things like that. And I can't say like, 100% of the time they always work out, but I'm always challenging myself. And that's what I want people to do is like, don't just try and get what you think you can get, to where you can get, like challenge yourself just to show you that huge things are possible and there really are no limits.
Well, you do a great job of even sharing those 2 affirmations for one of the characters in the book. And I want to emphasize to our listener that this is a book that really does take you step by step through how you get to a breakthrough in your life. So wherever you are in your developmental journey, this is really key. You can get something from this book that will help out. Now, when we come in to our adulthood, we're at a developmental level that psychologists call the socialized mind, meaning we've taken on the beliefs of the world around us. And at some point we awaken to the idea that, hey, I can actually do things differently. I can decide how my life's going to go. And that's when we move to what's called the self-authoring mind. And your character, Jonathan, is really in the socialized mind, and he is making a transition to self-authoring by way of some mentors. I really like that you didn't have just one person coaching him. You break up the 3 big ideas to several folks that are really taking him to the next level of engagement and utilizing this.
And I wanted to have some diverse mentors too.
Yes.
Not just one, guy like me.
Right.
I wanted to have some diversity in the mentors too.
I like that. I really did. I thought it was very nicely crafted. And the messages are super supportive. I really love it in that regard. Now, there is this thing that starts to show up, and it's this idea of the universal life force that's guiding this young man's life. Now, I asked, where did you get turned on to it? But I also want you to try to define in your own words what you think universal life force is. There was a movie out called The Secret.
Yeah.
I was filmed for it, but I ended up on the cutting room floor. I was in a film featured called Beyond the Secret, which talks about what else is there. And I think your book does a nice job of getting at that what else in order to make this universal life force really come alive for us. So could you describe what that is?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So first of all, I don't think, for me, the superconscious mind doesn't reside in the body. I think we reside in the mind. So, we think that we're this hunk of flesh, right? Kind of going through the world. And, we literally with our mind are creating what's happening in the flesh. And you've done tons of work on that. And I interviewed you for my Global Energy Healing Summit. You had some amazing stories of people really understanding that, we are impacting the flesh with our mind. And so our mind, I think our mind is much, much bigger than our bodies, and our mind can connect with anything in the non-physical world or even in the physical world. So one of the things that's really important, I think, if people are going to achieve big breakthroughs, you can't get locked into thinking you're just in this physical world and this physical body. You want to have one foot in there because we are experiencing through our physical body, right? If we're totally disengaged from that, then it's cool, but that's what we do when we leave our body. So why go all the way there right now? So, but 1 foot in the physical, 1 foot in the non-physical. In the non-physical, there are no limits, right? There's this universal consciousness, I believe, this life force that runs through everything that doesn't know any limits. Like, you told me a story of how a guy was putting a fuse box in and like literally blew his hand up where muscles and flesh was basically hanging, but he immediately looked at his hand and said, my hand is fine, or my hand is going to be fine, or whatever it was. And he truly believed that. And when you met him, his hand that got blown up looked better than his older hand, right? And so that's what we have. We've got this unbelievable capacity to link into something far greater than anything we can conceive in the physical world. The other thing that's really important to understand is that everything's created twice. Everything that you are looking at, that you and I are looking at, that anyone's looking at right now, that they're touching, they're feeling, they're seeing, it first was created in somebody's mind. First in the inside, then on the outside. So how do miracles happen on the outside? Part of it's our own effort with our conscious mind, directing our superconscious what to do. But I believe there's more than that. Like, we can call on energies that are just amazing. And there's non-physical energies, life force energy that is always available to us. And when even in writing the book, I was like, all right, I could write this book and do it with my own effort and conscious mind, and it'd be okay. But I'm like, no, come on, work through me. Let's go, baby. Bring some ideas. Come on. And so many ideas in that book, I know I didn't come up with on my own. I didn't. It was something far greater, far more intelligent than I was. And that's what we have this ability to do. I think we even have the ability to call on non-physical entities, right? Obviously, most people believe in a higher power. So I believe in that, but also spirits and souls and things like that want to help us, guides, angels, whatever you want to call them. Like, they're all there. And when you call on them, that's when miracles really happen, and they can happen a lot faster.
No, I think it's beautiful. And the metaphysical, the non-physical, as you're referring to it, is not an easy thing for the critical logical mind to grasp, because we're not given that kind of instruction in a traditional education, and very often not even in a religious education. We're really told we do not have direct contact with that universal life force. We have to have an intermediary doing the prayer for us, right? So
yeah. Well,
I appreciate that.
Though, like, if you read, or maybe there's probably many exceptions, but even in the Bible, if you read Jesus's words, not maybe some of the other stuff, but he's the one that said, you have little faith, right? If you had the faith the size of a mustard seed, you could tell that mountain to move from here to there, and it would move. So I think he was trying to tell us this, right? That hey, come on now, you can do so much more.
Yeah, that is really key. And one of the more challenging issues that you address in this journey that our young main character is going through is to try to have faith in something, try to build belief, strengthen his belief in something unseen. So he's doing the affirmation, he's doing the visualization, he's doing everything, and he still doesn't really believe. And his mentor is saying, hey, that's, completely understandable. Talk to me and our listener right now about a key principle or idea or practice that you feel is essential in one's everyday life to build that capacity to have a belief in something that has not yet come into its manifest form in your life.
Yeah, it's a great question. And part of your ability to actually manifest and create is probably, part of it is just the belief divided by doubt, or belief maybe minus doubt. Like, because you can believe a little bit, but every time you allow doubts to come in, then you're weakening your creative ability. I think we're here to create. We are creators. We were created by a creator. We have been given this ability to create. But when we doubt, we literally like suck the power out of our ability to create. And people let doubt come into their minds so easily, right? It's easy
for
to
sure.
do because everyone else has it. You kind of say, well, they don't really believe they can do this, or this can be done, or no one believes in me. You got to believe in yourself, and no one else does. And so one of the habits, so the big idea, the three big ideas are focus on less, then obsess, but a superconscious obsession is what we're talking about.
Right.
If you can quantify the superconscious mind, some people have tried to quantify the subconscious mind, and they say it can process 40 million bits of information per second. They say the conscious mind can process 40 bits of information per second. You don't want to obsess with your conscious mind. It's already busy enough, right? But your superconscious mind, and I think 40 million is probably not even the real limit, right? But the superconscious mind can take it on. It can work 24/7. So how do you program it? You do it by, number one, focusing in on what you really want, not a million things. Like if you want to create a breakthrough result, I think work on no more than 3 at a time, right? Because you need to be laser focused. You need that superconscious mind not to go, okay, you want all these million, and no, you want it to go, you want this, this, and this. Now it's going to work on other things too, but it can really laser in, not just be a light bulb. It can laser. It can have that intensity. And then the way you direct it to really understand what you want and to be almost like a guided missile is two things. One is connect it to your purpose. Connect it to your life purpose. Why are you here? Even if it's an amount of money. Like if you are here and your purpose in life is to elevate humanity, right? I just made that up. And then you go, well, I want to make this amount of money. Well, connect it. Like if I make that amount of money, how will that allow me to elevate humanity, right? Maybe be an example, maybe to contribute more, whatever it is. And so connect it to purpose, because your purpose is like this unbelievable power. It's the reason you were born into this body and you're on this planet in this existence. So connect it to purpose. Don't just make it something that'd be nice to have. And then a second habit is to see it, feel it, and believe it, and then let it go. So a couple times a day, get into a alpha state, a slower brainwave state. You have amazing recordings I love called Paraliminals. I've done a couple with you. I was such a huge fan. I'm like, hey man, I want to do some of these with you years ago. But get into a more of an alpha or a lower brainwave state where you can really open that trap door, go down into the superconscious, and then and visualize it. And you might go, well, I'm not very good at visualizing. Well, just keep working at it. Keep working at it. And you can even say, I'm imagining. Einstein said the most powerful force is imagination. He said it's a preview of coming attractions, right? You've got to imagine it so that the superconscious knows what you want. You don't have to imagine how you're going to get it. That it'll work on that. But imagine what it looks like. Imagine what it feels like when you already have it. I had a friend that was an accountant in New York, and young guy right out of college on the fast track, and he decided he wanted to be a Navy SEAL. And the recruiter tried to talk him out of it. He said, don't go for that. You've got this great job. You've got the nice office. You've got a big career ahead of you. He said they only take 2 people from the civilian world to even try out to become Navy SEALs. All my friend heard was, I know one of those 2 slots is mine. I don't know who the other guy is. But he had to work on seeing it, feeling it, believing it for 8 months before he got the call. Now, how many people will do that, Paul? How many people will carve into their mind for 8 months, like keep going every day? No, like 2 days ago, all right, I did the work. Like, where's the result? But he did it for 8 months. He got the call. And not only did he get to try out, he was one of 17 people out of a class of 170 that graduated. But not only that, his belief was so strong for this inner work he was doing. He was assigned 6 other people. He was the officer on a boat crew. All 6 of his people that were on his boat crew, because they were engulfed by his belief and his leadership, they all graduated too. So 7 people out of the 17 were his intact boat crew.
That is so cool. So the idea of having not only determination, but persistence, and to have a consistent application of the principles that you talk about is essential to building that habit of mind to be able to overcome the self-limits, the doubts that are so frequently derailing our best intention. I love the way that you have framed that, and that you even created for the young man going through this what his daily routine looks, sounds, and feels like from the time he wakes up to the time he's falling off to bed each night.
Yeah.
Now, a key piece of the work that you've described here, and certainly it's been my experience, the best way to come to understand the superconscious mind and how this universal life force is operating in our lives is to have a practice of meditation. Mm-hmm. And meditation, the science is in, it's super helpful for everything about our human life, our emotional life, our mental life, super important. And who has time? And the first few times a person meditates, they close their eyes and all they see is their monkey mind trashing everything about their life. Tell me a little bit about your practice of meditation, and what do you recommend for our listener to help integrate meditation into their lives?
Yeah, there's so many great tools. I mean, I think, to me, your Paraliminals are a great meditative tool. They put us into a meditative state very easily, guided through, again, seeing, feeling, believing things. And so I love that. I've learned Silva mind control. I've learned transcendental meditation. I have so many different ways I can meditate. But when you said something early on, like who has time to do it? For me now, it's like who has time not to do it, right? Or I don't even know that makes sense, but I don't have time not to do it, right? I have to do it. I have to do it. And you can see chairs behind me if you can see the video. Well, first of all, I already meditated this morning, but at some point in time, I'm going to sit back in one of those chairs later on this afternoon. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to get into a meditative state. And if you don't, like, I know some people that say, oh, I just can't meditate. Well, what you're really saying is you can't control your mind. If you can't meditate, you can't control your mind. And to create huge breakthroughs, you have to control your mind. You need to focus it on certain things. You need to turn it off when you need to, right? And if the mind is always busy, you are not in the most powerful creative state. Jose Silva said the most powerful creative state is 10 cycles per second, which is an alpha state. Your thoughts have more power. You open up, and I don't know if that's true, but I do believe that. Right? Your thoughts have more power when you slow the mind down. Your thoughts can now reach down into the superconscious when it's not so chattery and in a beta state where thoughts are the monkey mind, you call it. That's not a very creative state. It's an active state. We need to be there sometime, but to create in the non-physical world, to envision things, it doesn't work well.
So the concept of meditation to me was quite new when I went to college.
Yeah.
And there was a professor of Sanskrit, winner of the Teacher of the Year award named Dr. Ushar Budharia. And he was from an ancient tradition, a Brahmin tradition. And he used to teach these ancient texts. From the time he was 9 years old, there'd be 10,000 people in the audiences. I mean, he was a remarkable guy, and he taught a course called Superconscious Meditation. Yeah. But it was from a system called Raja Yoga, which has 8 rungs to the ladder. And the first 2 are about the restraints or the constraints we place on ourselves so that we can focus the mind. The term yoga literally translates into yoke. Like, here's this ox. You put the yoke on the ox, you rein in that powerful mind so it can do the work that we needed to do in this life. So I do want to emphasize, super important to develop a habit of taking time to just drop in and connect with that greater power and presence within. Now,
it feels so good when you really do it. It's not a chore.
Well,
in the beginning, it's a chore, but then it's just, oh man, you feel so good when you do it.
So I mentioned this to my teacher one time because he and I built a course called Meditate with the Himalayan Masters.
Yeah.
And I said to him, you're such a disciplined person. He said, discipline? You write that word on a piece of paper, I'll run out of the room. I am not disciplined. I've trained my inclination. So to your point, you're inclined to do it because you can't imagine living a day without it. Your day does not go as well if you haven't done your meditative practice. So it really is important, I think, to help not only embrace the principles that you're presenting here, but to certainly practice it, that you set your sights on how you use the power of your inner mind most effectively. And a lot of great distinctions that you make in the book. So, kudos to you on a really cool teaching process. Maybe I should say kudos to your superconscious mind, right?
There you go.
But really, clearly, if you're listening to this, you're here because you are already self-authoring. You understand, and you probably also recognize that there are some stuck states that you get into. You want something, you haven't been able to produce it up until now. So aside from, Tom, you telling everybody, go read the book and learn along with us, what would you leave our listener with as a principle or a main concept?
Yeah. I think it's just the fact that I don't think we really have limits. I think, there's things that haven't been done. There's things that might look impossible right now. Like, I was talking to a friend about this, and he said, he goes, I tried to teach my kids that too. And he said, one of my kids said, well, can a man land on the sun? Right. And he goes, well, it hasn't been done yet, but it's probably possible. Right. And when you start looking at life, not as I'm stuck in this and, I can only do this, which our story will tell us, the story we all have, there's some limitations in our stories right now, which is fine. Get rid of your limitations, let go of your old baggage. That's part of the thing you need to do. If you don't let go of the old baggage, you're building a new story on a kind of a crappy foundation. So, but I truly, and you have to take action too, but I don't believe in massive foaming at the mouth action. I believe in effective action. Effective action is meditating. Well, what's that going to accomplish? It's going to accomplish so much in your life. It's a restorative action. Not all action is achievement action, and even your achievement actions, if you could double the effectiveness of your achievement actions, you would work the same amount of time and be so much more successful. So there are no limits. There are no limits. You are a creator. You were created by the creator. You were given this ability to create amazing things. And it's why we have so many amazing things, in this physical world. It's because of people like you. But make sure you remind yourself of that. And then the breakthrough code is just a process, which if you stay with it, I use it every day. Well, I've always got a couple big things I'm working on in my mind every day. And when you use this practice of the breakthrough code, it's just 3 big ideas. You're going to find that things are going to come so much easier, and things that a year ago you would have looked at yourself and gone, oh man, there's no way I could have done that. That stuff's going to be happening for you.
That's so cool. Cool. When I was reading it and I checked my own practices against what the breakthrough code was presenting, I was thinking, I could probably update that one a little bit. Yeah, I could do a little more of that. So no matter where you are in your journey, I think there is something that can assist you. Tom, thanks so much for writing the book, and thanks so much for being a part of this podcast.
Always great hanging out with you, my friend. And, you've been such an influence on me too. So thank you for everything.
You as well. Peace and blessings. hope you enjoyed our conversation with Tom McCarthy. You can learn more about Tom at tommccarthy.com. That's TOMMCCARTHY.com. And now in the second part of the podcast, it's just you and me. I'll tell you how to use the Paraliminal sessions in the MINDTRX app to easily handle obstacles and move toward the success you want, especially as it relates to our discussion with Tom. If you're new to the relaxing Paraliminal audio sessions, they use breakthrough technologies to activate your whole mind in only 20 minutes to help improve any area of your life. Let's get going. Hi, welcome to the follow-up session for my interview with Tom McCarthy and our discussion about the book that he wrote, The Breakthrough Code. A lot of fun for me. I'd like to give you some insight of what kinds of paraliminals you could use that could help implement many of the things that he says you should do as a part of creating the breakthrough in your life that you would like to have happen. And I really broke it into the three areas that he talks about within the book. There are three big ideas that he has. The first is focus on less than obsess. The second is upgrade your story, upgrade your life. And the third is pack your day with effective actions. Now, as you know, Tom McCarthy and I actually produced a couple of very powerful paraliminals together. We worked in a studio in Santa Fe, and it was a lot of fun, very effective for people. I'm going to mention the use of one of them in this session. So if we start with the idea of focus on less than obsess, the main thing that I wanted to get to is his concept of getting the superconscious mind to obsess around what it is you're choosing to create as a breakthrough in your life. It's not that your conscious mind is obsessing about it, but you deliver it effectively to your non-conscious mind, or as he refers to it as the superconscious mind, that thing that connects you to all the power and energy necessary to create your life as you choose to do it. And he referred to a habit of seeing it, feeling it, believing it, and then letting it go. So there's certainly the first paraliminal I would recommend. The belief paraliminal is super important. It also does something else, which was a big part of this. It's letting go of baggage or changing the self-limiting beliefs that you have going on. So the belief paraliminal does a lot for you in that regard. You look at circumstances and situations that occurred, and you shift your relationship to those. Certainly the one paraliminal I refer to every time I talk about following up on some cool idea that an author has shared is the prosperity paraliminal, because it puts us in touch with the recognition that there is an abundance of all that you need to create the life that you're choosing to create. So belief paraliminal, prosperity, both very, very helpful in this regard. The big idea number two is about upgrading your story, upgrading your life, letting go of past baggage. Yes, the belief paraliminal will help tremendously in that. The other one that's very helpful is the new history generator. You probably already recognize that, but I've seen some very profound therapeutic changes occurring in people's life around the very issue that he talks about, not only in the book, but he mentioned in the podcast about as a 3-year-old losing his father and his relationship to an energy in his life that was missing, and how much of his own self-defeat was caused by that. Well, it begins to completely shift. The new history generator begins to completely shift your relationship to those memories, because what happens is you start to recognize memories are fluid, and you can actually shift your relationship to anything that occurred in your life. We started out the interview by talking about a very major shift, that life didn't happen to me, life happens for me. And this is where the real breakthrough insight can occur, by recognizing that my life wouldn't be where it is today in all the good ways had I not been through that situation. So, very helpful. The other one that I really love in this regard is the self-love paraliminal, because in that one, you're bringing your past self and your future self together with your present self. And so you begin to recognize that you are always in a process of restoring your life across a long arc. And that arc is happening by your choice of how you're using your mind. So it's a powerful idea, really helps to help get us to let go of some of that baggage that may have been holding us back. The second habit in this area of big idea number 2 is to design your own breakthrough story. This is where I think living the law of attraction really comes in. When I worked with Jack Canfield in creating Living the Law of Attraction, he talks, as Tom McCarthy did, about the idea of an inspired purpose. And then your goals are always about living into that inspired purpose. And when those are really in line, when they're lined up, then you're going to be able to move more powerfully in the direction of creating the life that you choose. You are designing your own breakthrough story by saying that no matter what the life has brought me up until now, no matter what I've created in my life's history, I can choose now to create the future that I desire. And it's a learning process. Obviously, you're going to be developing, growing as you go. It really is attracting to you everything that you need. You heard it, Tom McCarthy referring to it all the time. The universe is always bringing us everything that we need to be able to achieve what it is we set our mind to. We don't need to know how it's going to happen. We just need to know what it is that we're choosing to have happen. And then in terms of the third habit around big idea number 2, it's stick to your story no matter what. Well, the paraliminal I'm going to recommend is actually in that statement, no matter what, with Lisa Nichols. Giving yourself a second chance. You're going to create this life no matter what. It doesn't matter what kind of setbacks may befall you between here and there. You're going to pick yourself up. You're going to keep on moving. And to that point, the character in the book has a bunch of setbacks, even though he's using the breakthrough code. And those setbacks are really helping to clarify his thinking, clarify his energy, and continuing to help him move where he wants to go. And the final big idea number 3, is to pack your day with effective actions. Well, I think a lot of the Paraliminal library is going to help you do exactly that. And to the point that Tom made, Paraliminals are a great way of meditating, because it's really helping put those voices in your mind that are self-affirming, that are actually helping you move in the direction of what you're choosing. So I'm thinking of 4 that could be really helpful here. One is creativity supercharger, especially when we're running into some challenges of not knowing how we're going to break through. You remember Tom's story about thinking, well, I could write this book from my conscious mind and it'll be okay. But if my superconscious mind writes it, so he got his superconscious mind on board. And that's what we're doing with the creativity supercharger paraliminal. We're letting your non-conscious resources of mind deliver to you what it is you need to take that next step that's there in front of you. Even when there seems to be no way, there's a way. And it's your inner mind that's going to find the best ways and means of getting you there. Second one is self-discipline. I talked about my meditation teacher and how Tom has trained his inclination. That's really what we want to have happen. You could also listen to the Break the Habit Paraliminal, because if there is a habit of thinking or behaving that's keeping you out of what it is you want, think about this one. Self-discipline is, now that you know, now you can really lean into it and make progress. We talked about consistent and persistent behaviors, actions that must be taken in the direction of where you're choosing to go. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't refer to one of the Paraliminals that Tom and I made. And so his Paraliminal with me, called Peak Performance is Ideal. Not only will it help you integrate everything that he's talking about in the book, but it really is about you getting to that breakthrough that you're choosing to have happen, that you can do it. You know it's within you to be able to do this. And finally, power thinking. When it comes to packing your day with effective actions, power thinking is really it, because you're putting that power of mental focus. I always love taking the example, holding a sheet of paper and taking a pencil with the eraser end, and then having someone push the eraser end through that piece of paper. It rips, it looks really ugly, it's a mess. And then I take another sheet of paper and I say, now, put a hole in this paper with a pointy end. It goes, ding, perfect. A single thought can be a power in and of itself. And so power thinking is really about leveraging the power of focus, focusing that superconscious mind, as well as focusing universal life force on getting you to where you want to go. Enjoy listening to the Paraliminals. As always, great to be with you. Peace and blessings. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me today. I applaud your willingness to maximize your potential. You can easily use the Paraliminal audio sessions in the MINDTRX app to stimulate your non-conscious mind, your inner mind, to reduce any resistance in your life and to propel you toward the success you want. Visit MINDTRX.com to learn more. These amazing audio tools have helped millions, and I encourage you to bring them into your world today. Be sure to be back for more episodes of the MINDTRX podcast. You'll find insightful conversations with authors, experts, and thought leaders, all devoted to improving your life's experience. Thank you again for being here on our MINDTRX podcast.